Hello, I'm Susan Wray, Editor-in-Chief of Physiological Reports, and I'm going to be talking to Laurie Bogren, who is an author on a recently accepted paper entitled The Effects of Hibernation and Forced Disuse, Neurectomy on Bone Properties in Arctic ground squirrels. So Laurie, first off, thank you very much for agreeing to do this, and could you just introduce for us the members of your team?
Well, thank you for having me. And yes, I worked with Erin Johnson, Bahara Bharati, which on the paper her name is Zainab, Paula Martin, Samantha Woodra, Ian Von Tetz, Adrian LeBlanc, Seth Donahue, and Kelly Drew. And it was quite a collaborative team at the University of Alaska Fairbanks, Colorado State University, and also with the University Space Research Association in Houston, Texas.
Thank you very much, Laurie. So yes, quite a team there. And I think before we get into the nitty-gritty of your paper, I was just really, as a physiologist who does most of her work on isolated tissues, I was really taken with seeing Arctic ground squirrels and words like hibernation. And just very briefly, Laurie, could you just tell us about some of the challenges doing this kind of work in general present and how you overcome them, perhaps?
Well, the biggest challenge is that these animals are on a very strict schedule, and most of our experiments were interested in comparing their physiology when they're hibernating to when they're not hibernating. And so being able to work with the animals, and we can't even really time our experiments. We just have to work when they wake up or when it's summertime. Yes. And all of our experiments are kind of timed around them.
Okay, well, thanks for that, Laurie. So would you kindly set the background to your study by telling us what question you were trying to answer and, why we should be interested in this question?
Well, other labs have found that ground squirrels and hibernating mammals are resistant to bone loss with disuse. Some of our funding came from NASA, and it was important because astronauts lose bone when they don't have any gravity or any mechanical loading on their bones. It's also important for people who are bedridden. So it's a really interesting property that these animals have, but we weren't sure if it was just during the time that they were hibernating when their metabolism is suppressed, or if it is actually something more intrinsic to the animals themselves. And so that was the question we were trying to address. Is it a hibernation specific phenotype, or is it something that is invocable year-round?
Okay, and I can see that connection between space flight and patients who are long-term in hospital, and that this ties up with hibernation. That's really fascinating areas of physiology. I think I understand the question you're asking then. So is this something that's inherent to the animals? So what was your methods and how did you go about studying it then, Laurie?
Well, we did a neurectomy model of disuse where we go in and we sever the sciatic nerve in one of the limbs, and then the animals can't use that limb. And then we monitored bone density in that limb and then in their contralateral limb over the course of the year. We also had a sham group where we went in and did the surgery, but we didn't actually cut the nerve, and they served as a control. And we did the same thing with them in monitoring the bone density throughout the year. At the end of the year, we then collected the bones from the animals, and we were able to do a micro CT and mechanical testing on those bones.
What did you find then?
Well, we were surprised because we actually found that they did maintain bone density during the summer, so throughout the winter and then on into the summer, which we weren't quite expecting.
Yeah. And did you get any insights as to what the mechanism for that maintenance could be?
Unfortunately, the techniques that we used did not allow us to do that. We continued to monitor the same set of animals, so we weren't able to go in and do a tissue collection and really look at the dynamics of the bone over the course of the whole year. We just had the end point where we could look at the mechanical properties and do the micro CT. We were just able to use a DEXA and scan the live animals throughout the year.
Sure, which I guess for many of us, just thinking of experiments lasting a year, having first trapped your squirrel, I mean, we're impressed already. So where do you think the next step will be then? So would you say the most important finding was that, in fact, your hypothesis wasn't confirmed? Am I understanding that correctly, Laurie?
That's right. So I think the most important finding was that they do maintain bone in the summertime, even when their metabolism is at normal levels. And so I think the next questions that need to be addressed is really getting to the mechanism of how that is, looking at the bone dynamics over the year and doing that with more animals and more collection time points.
Great. Well, again, thank you very much for publishing in Physiological Reports. I hope has been, online for you, and open access will get you the readers that I think this paper deserves. Thank you very much, Laurie.
Thank you very much, Susan.